offenses, and they were not at a disadvantage at this point because we have the same fines, the same amounts per transaction, I guess if you will, as the counties that have already settled.
The question was, did they get
Yeah, they did spend the money to get attorneys and have additional court costs that were added on those.
but their amounts were less than
And remember, this is
There
no
are
longer a PDC complaint. This is an AG complaint. The PDC complaint that also said that there was inappropriate use of funds was dismissed because of this complaint. So they're not even looking into that. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. The PDC did completely dismiss all claims and charges against us from the PDC and is solely on this. They'll result to the AG for any findings and fines. So everything has been dismissed on the PDC side, which did include more timeliness.
Actually, it's not dismissed, they're deferring to the AG. They're not dismissed.
Our legal expert, thank you.
Well, I've learned some things lately, the last 5 months being involved in lawsuits, so yes, I've learned.
There's okay, so we'll put first to a vote whether or not we want to accept the offer, and if we don't accept the offer, then we can put to a vote whether or not we want to seek legal counsel to try to seek a better offer. So. The motion was made by Carolyn Crane and seconded by Vincent Marcy. Precincts, please.
I made a motion to accept the current negotiated offer. The motion is to accept the current negotiated offer from the AG's office that David has negotiated, and we would also consider accepting the revised amount should he be successful in negotiating the penalties down.
Let me know when you got that.
Point of information?
Yes.
Yeah, Trevor Winton, precinct 460, if we don't accept this offer, what's the consequence? Because that doesn't guarantee.
Then I'm tapped out of what I can do, so we have to refer to legal counsel. If we don't do that as a body, then it's up to you guys. As far as what we can do now is we have the opportunity to accept an offer that agrees to accept it and still try to get it down, or if we think we can do something else, we need to seek legal counsel and pay for that. Thank you.
If we accept that, is the payment program going to be years, decades?
It's years typically. That's what they're looking at for us because the ability to pay that amount is not expected to come up in the next year or so. He said that it could be up to like $3,000 a quarter at the moment, or every 6 months.
Well, should we ever be involved in some later
Well, some of the Democrat parties are simply dissolved. And every 2 years we have the right to reorganize. As a brand new organization, we can file with the IRS and the PDC and we can be a brand new organization. I don't know what the consequences of that are, but the Democrats are taking that route. Yeah, if we refuse to just accept or decline the offer and we don't have an attorney, then we could receive a $1.9 million fine. But I think the only two real options are to either seek legal counsel or to accept the offer. So we have the motion. We already have the motion on the table right now. It's been seconded. The second was Vincent Marcy. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything before we take a vote? Okay, John Lane. Is there somebody who wants to second that? Okay. All in favor of Kenny's motion? Who seconded that? All in favor of Kenny's motion to table this and handle the attorney first, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, it looks pretty even. Lisa and Jimmy, can you two do counts? So we have the vote. Lisa, do you do? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, but we have the motion on the table, so his motion is to table that and handle the attorney one first. Okay. Is that a friendly motion, Kenny? I mean, a friendly amendment to your motion? Okay, so we're gonna substitute the attorney one. Your thing is to substitute the attorney motion for the one that's currently on. Okay. Okay, so if that's a friendly one, then and Richard still wants to second that. There's a motion to substitute voting on whether or not to hire legal counsel for the current motion on the table. So all in favor of substituting the motion for hiring an attorney, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Motion carries. So at this time, we're going to handle the motion to seek legal counsel for the claim. So everybody in favor of seeking legal counsel, do we have discussion? Yeah, does anybody, we had kind of open discussion on the whole matter, but just more. Go ahead, stand in line and come on up here.
Anyone who represents themselves as a fool is a client. So my name is Steve Cox, precinct 692. As I said, anyone who represents themselves in court has a fool for a client. We need to consult with an attorney. We need to find out what our legal options are before we move forward. I recommend a yay vote on the current motion.
The fines up north and in other counties have not been negotiated through the use of an attorney for less than ours have. However, they paid attorney fees. So their out-of-pocket was actually higher. So I have that for an issue, and as to the issue of whether or not we could come to the end and dissolve this party, not in my book, but also not in the book of the judge. And I think it's important to recognize that. A judge up north already ruled in a case on that, and they were not allowed to dissolve and just reform and come back and not have a penalty.
We have to stick to the issue at hand. The point of right now is whether or not we seek legal counsel. Yeah, you did. You substituted Carolyn's motion. So if there's anybody that has discussion, please come to the front.
So we have a motion by
So now Kenny would like to make an amendment to his original motion to limit the cost to $1,500. Is there a second? Without a second? Okay, please, name precinct. Robert Mann, precinct. Okay. Does anybody want to have discussion or you want to take a vote? So are you withdrawing your amendment, or are you? Okay. Okay, then all in favor of limiting the amount spent to 1,500, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. The motion fails, or carries, sorry, carries. So the motion on the table as amended is that we seek legal counsel and limit the spending to $1,500. Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Dan Barnes, 678. You guys consulted an attorney lately? $1,500 is going to get you nothing. It's going to get you some paralegal that's going to ask you what the facts are. And the facts are we don't have a leg to stand on, and they're going to give us a bill for $1,500. So if you vote for it, I hope you throw your money in to pay for the attorney, because it is a waste of time.
If anybody else has something to say, please come up to the microphone.
So Caldwell, 682, I can speak from experience. Attorneys are $350 an hour, so you can get quite a few hours with an attorney at $1,500.
Go ahead, Brett.
There we go.
Now that it's been disclosed that I'm an attorney.
I have some doubts about letting it go to default. I don't know that that's a good idea. It's not that hard to set aside a default, which is one of the things you can talk to an attorney about. When was the complaint? When was the answer due? So it's been a while. It makes it a little harder, but it's still possible. I've seen it. The other thing is we have some other options. There's the option of dissolution of the organization. That ought to be looked at. An option of indemnity, because most of these violations occurred during a previous administration of the county party. That ought to be looked at. And I think we all have a fiduciary obligation to do that. Another thing that came to mind is we have a Democratic Attorney General, a very partisan Democratic Attorney General. Are they going after Democratic parties as well? I heard that, I think they are, so we probably don't have a selective enforcement kind of claim, but I think dissolution and indemnity to basically assert the full rights of this organization is something that's in order.
Carolyn, you already spoke, so Trevor, and then Carolyn.
Trevor Winton, Precinct 460. I wish, Brent, since you're an attorney, in your opinion, which would be the least costly, most effective route?
Find a friendly lawyer other than me to help you. There are a few Republican lawyers out there.
Do you expect that we would get a better deal total if we were to look at the net difference in cost, if we were to pursue this option?
I think we're probably stuck with that. But in other offices, we have this solution. And parties that actually file.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify on that, I think the purpose of hiring an attorney from the perspective we just heard was to look at the people who are responsible for the filings to try to get that money from them, or to dissolve the party. Those are the two options. I just want to clarify that. Okay.
David just clarified what I was going to come up and ask, was for Brent to please make sure that everybody understood the process of indemnification. We're a group of volunteers. Are we ever going to find another treasurer? I mean, some people are arguing against this, and they might be biting off our nose to spite our face. I'm not sure that whether I like a person or not, per se, I want to go out and hold them accountable for very complicated PDC filings. And I kind of would prefer to move forward.
Sharon Long, precinct 675. I would be very much against us dissolving and reorganizing. One of the many reasons that I'm a Republican is because I believe in doing things upright. And to me, that is a very underhanded way of dealing with something that we did make a mistake, and we need to make it right. And so I am against hiring an attorney and dragging this out. I think we need to take the deal.
Alan Rogers, 636. I think everybody recognizes there's been mistakes made. It's a complicated process. Some of the people didn't really understand the consequences of the mistakes that they thought were fairly minor. It sounds like that the deal that's on the table is about as good as we're going to get, even with hiring a lawyer. Those counties that have consulted attorneys haven't done much better. Okay. All right. So, and the comments from Brent that, you know, we may or may not be able to do better, but it would cost us some money. I'm of the opinion that we need to just grit our teeth, let bygones be bygones. We don't want to send somebody into financial ruin, that we're doing the best they could at the time, not knowing better. I suggest that we accept the offer and move forward. This is creating a lot of division in our organization and distractions from upcoming elections. I hate to say that, you know, I don't want to ignore mistakes that have been made, but we need to do better in the future, obviously. But at this point, I think we just need to accept it and move forward. Thank you.
Michael Ware, 449. So there's a difference of opinion. Fine. And I don't mind spending the money either. And I'm not looking to blame one person or another. But I am not a lawyer. And I want what Mr. Cox said to happen. I believe we should get a lawyer. If we're going to be on the hook for $37,000, I'll feel a lot better if I spend a couple $1,000 and a lawyer tells me it's a good idea. Thank you.
Lisa Ross, 420. I do not think that we should get a lawyer.
The limit of that would be $1,500. All in favor, please raise your hand. All of the motion on the table is to seek legal counsel with a limit of $1,500. Is that's the. Is to have a seek legal counsel with a spending limit of $1,500. That's well, the purpose is to have them review the case and make a recommendation. The lawsuit. That's the obvious purpose. So I think we all agree on that. Okay. So again, I'm sorry. All in favor of seeking legal counsel with a $1,500 spending limit, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. It's too close. I'm gonna need somebody to count. Jimmy and Lisa, or Anita, if you're available. All right, again, all in favor, please raise your hand. What was the number? 27, we agree? That was the, sorry. So see that 27, we'll see what the number is, and we'll have to do a recount. All opposed, please raise your hand. So that's 38, so at 28, I mean, and then 2 up here, 29. All right, so we agree on that. 30. Sorry, guys. Let's do this one more time. All opposed, please go ahead and stand, make it easy. All opposed, go ahead and, or in favor, all in favor, sorry, please stand up. And please let me know when the counters agree on a number.
I don't agree with it. I agree it's part of it. I don't agree.
Yeah, this is if you're in favor of hiring legal counsel.
I don't agree with 1,500. That's really worthless. You might find volunteers.
How many on your side, Anita? Karen's up here. So how many, Jimmy? And then 13 including Karen? Okay. 29, okay. All opposed to hire an attorney, please stand.
That's what I the AG is the final say. They did.
Plus 2. Including 2. Okay. 30 total. So 30 to 29, the motion fails. Next motion will be if somebody we'll revert back to Carolyn. So that motion was made by Kenny to replace with the motion for the reverse the order. Yeah. So now we're back to Carolyn's original motion, which was to accept the offer. Do you want to reread that motion, Karen? Correct me if that's the wrong order, but I think we revert back to that. Since there's a motion to replace that failed, we're going back to Carolyn's original motion. So, all in favor of Carolyn's motion, please stand. We had that discussion. You wanted to say before we voted? Okay, let's please, Steve, before we do the vote counting, Steve would like to say something.
Steve Cox, precinct 692. The amendment to the current motion to accept the decision, board decision, was to leave it in the chairman's hand to hopefully negotiate a better settlement. My argument is that by default, if we refuse to accept the offer, the intent is to go forward and negotiate a better settlement. If we refuse this offer, again, Karen, you look a little confused, refuse the motion, deny it. The logical progression is that we are trying to negotiate a better settlement, correct? What we've done is then put all the decision into the chairman's hand for that negotiated settlement.
Okay, I can clarify for you, Steve. The motion on the table is to accept this deal, point blank. But if we can negotiate it down any further, we would take a lower payment, if we had a lower fine.
Operative word there, if.
But
I
we're
like
not- that's
certainties.
But we're not making a motion to negotiate, we're making a motion to accept.
Exactly. With the condition of if we can negotiate a better settlement, we'll accept that. My contention is that we take out the if, we deny the offer, and we go forward with the certainty that we're trying to negotiate a better settlement.
But the issue with that, Steve, I want to clarify, is that we don't have the time to bring this back to you guys before we probably have to make a decision. So, unless you want to have a special meeting and bring everybody here to see if we got it down a few thousand, the timeline is the issue with.
So the negotiation is just to capitulate at this point.
Take it as if it's not even going to go down no matter what. And we got this offer in front of us. Obviously, if we can get it lower, we want to do that, and be able to accept it. But at this point in time, due to the timeline, we either have to accept or reject this offer.
Okay, so just so everyone's sure, what we're doing is voting on a capitulation in this motion to accept the offer without legal representation or examining any other options. That's all I wanted to clear up. Thank you.
Okay, again, all in favor of Carolyn's motion, sorry, please stand. That would be a majority, so the motion carries. All right, thank you guys for going through that process, and there's some difference of opinions. Anything that comes to me from the AG, I'll send out to everybody in the room so that everybody's in the loop, and I'll do my best to do whatever I can to help. Now we're on to our committee chair report, our state committee woman treasurer's report. I'll see you over there. Mr. Joe Delgatti.
Does this one work? It is working. Okay. I'm going to put this on the stand really quick. That's what we get for not approving enough funds to go towards AV equipment. Yes, I'll hold this and try to see my notes here. We have slides. Oh, is that up? Okay. So we go, yeah. It's nice. I didn't have that logo. That's a really nice logo. So I wanted to report back that all our PDC filings are current since October, November, December, January, February, and we're in line to be on time with March as well. So when I think about this fine we're paying, at first I was upset that, or I wasn't really happy that we were paying somebody $150 a month to consult and to help us out with PDC filings. But when I see how much, or what the other option is, I think it's a good investment. I'm grateful that we have her help there. And so let's see, so in addition to these PDC filings, there are all kinds of little rules and regulations that we have to keep in compliance with during fundraisers and other activities, the way we expense money, the way we receive money. And so we had our PDC consultant come out and talk to the board and a few other members about how to account for things correctly, as far as like low-cost fundraisers and how we deal with anonymous donations. People, we can't have anonymous donations. Like, we're at a $300 limit. If we accept anything over $300, we don't get to keep it if it's anonymous. Yeah, for a year. So, and that's in its entirety. So that was one of the things that stood out to me is we need to make sure, I know it's a pain to maybe write down your employer's address, your address, and what your occupation is, but it's important so that we can make sure we accept all the money we can. Yeah, even if you're retired, you write retired. And if you're a homemaker, you write homemaker or stay-at-home mother or whatever you want to write. But there needs to be something in that space. Otherwise, it's a lot of research and a lot of effort calling people to try to get that filled in. Yeah, Sydney. Well, the thing is, if somebody donates $20 here and $20 here and $20 here, now we need to keep track of them. So I would say, even if you're only donating $20, just put it in the little envelope with your name on it and that information. Then you don't have to worry about it again because we keep it on file. I think that would actually go towards that $300 if it's not. Well, low-cost fundraiser doesn't there have to be an underlying?
Hey, we can review this stuff at a later time. We want to get through the reports here pretty quickly. We've been here a while already, so let's try to stay on track and get this efficient.
My request is that if you're going to donate, just give us your information off the bat and don't worry about it again after that. Unless you change jobs or something like that and you're donating again. So that's my second bullet point. We're in process. This was something in the bylaws that we would receive an independent audit by an audit committee. Something I remember when that was made, we argued about what it should be and how it should be conducted. But it needs to be done, and we are prepared to get it done. We have all the information together. We have bank statements, we have the PDC filings, we have all the information we need together to get the initial review done, and then I think there will be a full review after that. So we're in line to complete that, and we have somebody lined up. His name is Bruce Juice with Tax Law Associates. It's a local tax law firm, and they have agreed to do it for free. For free. This is, with that in mind, like I say, we have all of our 2015 to 2018 statements gathered, the profit loss statements. All our C3 and C4 filings for exempt and non-exempt accounts. And we have all our bank statements from April 2015, which is as far back as the bank account goes, to 2018 gathered. We also have all our online donations and donor info being gathered from our credit card authorizer, which they don't have a good system set up, so it's pulling donor by donor at a time. So that's kind of a lengthy process, but that's underway. So I think so we can report back in on how that audit goes, or that independent review of the books goes at the next quarterly meeting. So let's go to the next slide. So these are some highlights of this. Yeah. Yeah, Jeannie did the PDC training. Yeah, and specifically, she focused on how to handle things like auctions. And it was sort of scenarios. We went through a few scenarios that are going to be typical of our part of the Central Committee and how we raise funds. So yeah, I do, and she's still on hand as our consultant. Yeah, she does it. She's doing our filings. I present her with all the information. She enters it in. She comes back to questions with me if she has any, and so she does the filings. And I've gone through and I've pulled those PDC filings and checked them against what we have in a match. So she's doing a good job, and I think we're doing a good job. Yeah.
Quite information about the third-party review. Just wondering what the report will provide back. I see that it's underway. First of all, what will the report provide back?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's will provide us an option that we can look at for doing quarterly reporting to us and the annual review to us. They'll give us the cost of what that would look like every single year, and we can present that to you guys whether or not you want to do it at the next meeting. Well, we hope that they'll have it done by the next Central Committee meeting.
All right, yeah, so we'll go on to the next thing. So this is the January, copy of the January report that is the treasurer's report. You'll see some highlights. That's January's total balances after considering our obligations and bills that we have coming up. And then the bottom line profit loss for January was 2020. Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay. I apologize for it being small. I do have it in PDF form.
Sorry, everybody received these via email too. So you should all have them in your email. So if you want to review it at a later time, everybody does have the format in their email that was sent out to everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those slides have been sent out. If you still have trouble reading it, let me know. My email is treasurer@clarkrepublicans.com, and I can send that out to you. Really, what I wanted to do here is just highlight the profit loss and the balance for February. If you look at the February, you'll see the large numbers at the bottom. That's probably the most important thing. Is that our balances were $9,300. That's after obligations, known obligations that we have to meet concerning fundraisers and things like that. Oh, right, and I'll also add that the resource center is paid upfront up through May, and so a large part of the expenses that we have from, I think that was done in January, the end of January, so that was reflected in the January report. Bottom line profit loss was 2020 in February, and I think part of that was due to a few late donations received from the New Year's, the night before New Year's Eve. We talked about we're talking about this AG thing and possibly going to some of these elected officials for help. And I'll tell you, they are helping. They're contributing, from this thing, they contribute a really reasonable amount. And we're really appreciative of what they donate to our party and for the Republican cause. So I think that's everything. Do you want to switch to the last slide? So far, currently, as of today, the balances in the exempt account is 7046. Non-exempt is 6539. And we've got about 2250 in the greater giving account that we can't quite on yet. So, that will. Or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. No, that's wrong. The 2250 is in ticket sales that we've received so far. Some of that we have received in our account.
All right, next.
You're saying that 2015 that we received the big sales, that's money coming in from Lean Day. Are there any expenses incurred on Lean Day we made already? Because that looks like we have.
Yeah, I know it's tiny on there. If you look at on the, let me go to it here and blow it up on the screen. If you look at that liability side, you'll see we still have additional liabilities for that, but we've got about 4,500 as far as expenses, or known expenses that we're going to have to pay by the time that event takes place. And then also, you can see on the expense side sort of what's been expensed as far as, I think it's stated as, let's see here, security utility expense, or meeting expense. It might not have shown up on that one. It might be part of March expenses.
We do need to get through this, guys. We only got through for a couple hours.
Another
We got
10
a lot of
minutes.
reports to do. Do you have a quick question? Yeah, we're on the agenda.
I do have an issue with the treasurer's report, and he's saying that there isn't a complete accounting of the PDC reports and everything that's gone on, but I have right here a copy of the cashier's check withdrawn from the Clark County Republican Party for $10,000 that doesn't show up anywhere in the PDC reports, and it's made out to Robert Sabo. Okay, so this check to Robert Sabo for $10,000 does not show up anywhere in any PDC report. So there's obviously something wrong going on here with what's going on in the PDCs, and
that's an issue
the
with
date of the check
understanding how
is July
PDCs
5th, 2017.
Okay, so if you want to bring up something in new business, you're free to. We're going to stick to the agenda.
I'm just saying
So go
there's
ahead.
obviously an issue with what's going on here.
Let's move forward, please. Stacy, do you have a state committee report for us? Thank you.
Good morning. Actually, it's almost afternoon. Thank you all for sitting through this. I know that it's a lot to sit through, several hours, so I'm going to make mine very brief. We had our first state committee meeting for January, for 2018, January 19th and 20th in Moses Lake. Grant County Republican Party assisted in hosting 150 members and guests from around the state. We elected a new state chairman, Caleb Heimlich. That was pretty much the focus of the entire time there. There were 4 candidates for chairman, and each of them got to come to us and campaign and tell us why they should be chairman. Caleb won by a landslide. We also passed a motion to accept Susan Hutchison's resignation to go into effect February 4th. We recorded Jeff Kent conducting the elections for our training videos. And actually, can you get on that website or no? Yeah, it was for me. Sorry. I wanted to show you all a website. It's gopeakteam.com, and that's where a lot of resources for our PCOs and our legislative district chairs are, and for campaigns as well. We reported a very healthy 2017 year-end fiscals with $400,000 in the bank for the WSRP. We revised some bylaws and changed the region numbers so that they corresponded with congressional districts. The E-Board discussed looming lawsuits filed by Democrats and solutions being proposed by the legislature. The mayor of Moses Lake and Grant County Chairman, Danny Stone, spoke about his community, and Senator Judy Warnick and Representative Tom Dent spoke about the current legislative session and winning elections in 2018. We introduced our new WSRP employees, Communications Director Kyle Fisher and Field Director Austin Rice. National Committee members Jeff Kent and Freddie Simpsons gave each county a box of items for their Lincoln Day Dinner silent auctions. Each county received Lincoln Day Dinner manuals to help with their events so that they're successful. We acknowledged the President's accomplishments with the ABCs of Donald Trump's first year.
Our separate committees met and discussed some pertinent things that we're working on, and actually I'm going to have Joel come up here and talk about one thing that, exciting thing that he's working on. We gave a proclamation giving Susan Hutchison the title of Chairman Emeritus. Clark County is honored to host the next state committee meeting here in Clark County in Vancouver, May 18th and 19th. So it's very exciting, and we're hoping to represent our county very well. I want to turn it over to Joel to talk about something exciting he's working on.
Thank you, Stacy. So, yeah, we did elect Caleb Heimlich as the state chair, and I want to report that Clark County has a great relationship with the state party. I was, just really quickly, I was honored to proxy for Colonel Ron Averill from Lewis County to the executive board meeting, the state executive board meeting in last November. And everyone there is super excited about what's going on here in Clark County. I started a state committee Facebook page just to, it's a closed group to facilitate communication within the state committee, so I think that's a pretty cool thing. But what I'm really excited about is I'm sponsoring a resolution at the state committee to support moving Washington State's presidential primary up to at least the top 5 status. Is that, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Because I think that, and by the way, I have this, I can report I have the requisite signatures to get it, to discuss it at our state committee meeting right here in Clark County in May, so I'm excited about that. This is not a partisan issue. Like, this is going to be a good thing for all Washingtonians, because all Washingtonians should have a voice in who our president's nominee is. So I'm going to keep it brief. That's it. Do you have a question? Well, I just think that it's unfair that Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Florida get to choose who our presidential nominee is, because by the time it gets here, it's already been decided. So I'm supporting a resolution that we move it up. And by the way, I have the support of our great Republican Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, is on board with this initiative as well. So we want Washingtonians to have a voice in who our presidential nominee is. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Next, we're going to move forward with the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee. Trevor Wing has his report and proposals.
Hello, I'm Trevor Winton, the Bylaw and Resolution Committee Chair, and we've got the report on the screen there. It's not in your handouts. I want to start by just saying a bit about our committee, so to give you some context. First of all, our committee is for the body here to submit resolutions and or amendments to bylaws to be worked out in a committee before they come before this body. They can be given to us by the author themselves, someone that has an idea, or this body can refer to us a particular resolution to be looked at. We don't prevent anybody from bringing anything before this body, so I want to make that clear. We're just here as a resource. But what we do, basically, we've had 3 meetings so far, 3 official meetings, and our members have discussed a couple of amendments and a resolution, and we'll talk about that here in the report in just a moment. But we just do our best to try to work out any kinks, have some discussion, and prepare for a vote, and provide all of you information that we think is relevant for your consideration. But in the end, it's up to this body to decide whether or not to accept or reject. So we're simply providing a report on your behalf. And we provide that report by a majority vote in our committee. So where the majority of us say this is what we want to report, you'll see that here, and it's up to you to decide. The author of any resolution or amendment is always invited and encouraged to be a part of the deliberations in our committee, because we want that to be a cooperative effort. We have 13 members. Anyone in this body is welcome to join us. We meet Mondays 5:30. I'd like the members that are currently members, we have 13, to please stand so the rest of you can get a feel for who we have that are here. Some of us are here. Thank you, guys. Let me walk you through a bit about how this is going to work. I'll read the report that we provided for you, and then after that, it'll be up to you to consider the amendments and motions. So, we have the first amendment which is to the bylaws. The author, Carolyn, committee officer 337, she submitted this amendment for our consideration to the committee, and now it will come before you. Just to summarize its purpose, it's in your packet, by the way, it's Amendment 1 to the Clark County Revised Bylaws. But to summarize, it's basically bringing into compliance the current bylaws with the state RCWs regarding precinct committee officer appointments. Our committee discussed this, and we agree that the current party bylaws are written in a way that are not compliant with the RCWs. We were unable to determine the legality of adding additional requirements. So for instance, if you want to add additional restrictions on appointing PCOs, we weren't able to determine whether or not that's allowed, but the RCW for sure says that the party chair should do the appointments of PCOs. And the committee recommends a do pass on this amendment. I see questions, I'll take those afterwards. You need to skip the report? Yeah, fair. I just want to report on what we've provided for you guys, and then we'll take the vote after. So, amendment number 2. Okay, if you'd like, we can take a vote now. Then, if there's no objection, we can vote on amendment number 1. If that's what I'll leave it to the chair to manage that. I think the motion, to be clear, that you're making that's unseconded is to take a vote on amendment number 1. Okay. Before completing the report. Okay.
So did you complete your report on that amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, what's the change? What's the difference? Briefly, what's the difference between what we are doing now and what we have?
Sure. Yes. So just to summarize, the current bylaws have the legislative district chair doing the appointment of precinct committee officers. And the new amendment will put that authority to the party chair on the recommendation of the legislative district chair. But here's the author, so yeah.
The current bylaws have the legislative district chair bringing a PCO forward, and the actual appointment is done by the LD chair with the approval of the board. Washington state law states that political parties can do almost anything they want as long as that thing is not statutorily addressed. This is statutorily addressed. The statutes under the RCW say that this appointment process shall be done by the party chair. There's no LD board involved in this process. We're just simply trying to go through our bylaws and clean them up and bring them into compliance with law. I don't want any more AG complaints.
Okay, so we have just to make this official, we have the motion by Stephen Cox to approve the bylaw amendment 1 to the Clark County Republican Party. Also to be clear, that requires a two-thirds vote for approval of the form. And it was seconded by somebody, I don't remember, and Dominic. So we are now in discussion on that, if anybody has anything they'd like to say before we take the vote.
Thank you, Joe Wagner, 710. I've been trying to figure out what this all means after the events of October 17th. Okay, you don't like my leadership, that's fine. But we're still a grassroots party, right? At least I thought so until I saw this proposed amendment. Basically what this does is, instead of the legislative district chairs appoint whomever he pleases, and I'm sure there would be some pre-screening as to whether or not they would vote in his favor. To talk about how the county chairman has to do the appointing, it seems to me that we can bring our bylaws into compliance just by changing a single word, just by changing it to say that the LD chairman should nominate the people that the chairman appoints, rather than the chairman choosing whoever he pleases. I think this is the nail in the coffin on grassroots efforts, and I oppose this. And I would like to add that even the committee chairman admitted that they weren't sure about whether or not we could put in additional requirements like having the legislative district chairs doing the voting. I think we can. I think that's.
If they change the rules, we should just get rid of district chairs. We don't need them.
What's your precinct?
We're making David a dictator.
340. I'm on the bylaws committee, so I want to give a little bit of the thought process I had behind entering into this. On the one hand, I will say I personally would like to see the legislative district chairs make the appointments for the reasons that Joe Wagner said. We are a grassroots party. We like to see this happen at the grassroots level. That having been said, the RCW is specific and says the county chairs to make the appointment. If you look at your declaration of candidacy forms, one of the lines we have highlighted here is, further I declare under penalty of perjury that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Washington. So we have these two conflicting things that we have to deal with. One, the state of Washington says we have to do this. Two, my own principles say I would prefer it was this way. And so if you read through the actual resolution, how we wrote it, we did a lot of kind of iterating on this. And what we attempted best to do was to write it in a way that said, we want the LDs to have as much input as possible, but in the deference to the state, the chairman has the final authority as long as that's what's written in the state bylaws. So that's how we try to do it, to try to play to both of these sides and to try to kind of walk that medium, to both be in compliance, but also recognize our desire as a party that this is that this would be a grassroots effort that had consultation with the legislative districts as well. If you have any disagreements, feel free to comment, but I ask to read through what we wrote to see if you agree with that kind of assertion of what we tried to do and if we did it well. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Smith, 592. I'm encouraging you to vote against this bylaw amendment. I agree with Joe that it's a nail in the coffin of grassroots participation. There should be no difficulty allowing the chairman to make the appointment, but our current bylaw is making clear that the goal was that the LD chairman builds his LD, and he appoints the PCOs. Now, oftentimes the chairman might know that some person in the 17th, like whoever that was I talked about earlier, but it would go through the LD chairman. There's no reason to still do that. So I agree with Joe that I think maybe changing one or two words is all you have to do, and there should be no reason to do something this drastic.
Okay. Is there anything else? So we have a motion on the floor. We'll go ahead and do it by raising hand first. All in favor of the motion on the floor, please raise your hand. Okay. All opposed, please raise your hand. Well, it requires a 2/3 vote, and I feel like that's pretty close. So let's go ahead and do a count. And anybody on the sidelines that wants to take a vote on this, please participate. And we have two vote counters, Lisa and Anita. Okay, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. The motion on the floor is to pass bylaw amendment 1. The motion was made by Stephen Cox. So everybody in favor, please raise your hand. And then, Anita, how many did you have? Okay. Including the people up here, Anita? 35? Okay. All opposed, please raise your hand. 16 and a half, so 26. Okay, the motion was. Okay, that fails to reach the 2/3 requirement. So just be advised that if changes, if you want to pursue changes to the bylaws, they organizing meeting in December requires simple majority vote to pass bylaws, but at this meeting we require 2/3 vote to change. That did not happen, so we'll set aside that motion and we will revert back to Trevor for bylaw amendment 2.
Okay, moving along. The second item that our committee looked at, and we did so with a little bit of time, but the amendment 2, if we could scroll, thank you. Okay, so there's another amendment on the floor to be considered, and this was submitted by our chair, David Jalali, and it was submitted directly to our committee for consideration. To summarize, and you should have it in your packet as well, all the whereases, so you can read that in more detail. But to summarize, it's to establish permanent standing committees. So where we have the committee, the bylaws committee, and other committees operating at the moment by authority of resolution, it would put into our bylaws a permanent status of those committees. It also makes some changes slightly in the rules. It also changes the vetting, it adds the vetting committee to a standing committee. Our report on that basically, and we had just a little bit of time to look at it, basically we all as a committee agreed with the concept of having a standing committee. I do want to make a note that when we reviewed this at our last meeting on Monday, since then there have been changes made and our committee has not been able to review those changes. So we agree with the spirit, but I can't say that we have a full do pass recommendation because it has changed slightly. But the things that we did want to see changed that we discussed in Monday was the removal of a couple of, or sorry, the change to section 1B, which was reflected, where previously the amendment was to require 10 signatures to bring something before the body. We had that removed, and also provide 14 days notice. That's been changed to 10 days notice. If you could go back to the summary slide. Thank you. And then also there were a couple of rules for the committees that we wanted to have stricken. One was that the executive board or central committee may by majority vote exclude anyone from membership of a committee if the person is found to be disruptive or counterproductive. So we asked that that be removed. And the second thing we wanted to remove was that the executive board or central committee may by majority vote remove any committee chair for cause. So before we move to this one, the motion before you, amendment 2, if you could pull that out, please, because we're going to just make a slight change. There was a printing error. And on the second page, so you're looking now at amendment number 2 to the Clark County Republican bylaw. So if you flip that first page over on the back side of the first page, towards the bottom of your handout, rule number 6, I have highlighted here. It says the executive board or central committee may by majority vote remove any committee chair for cause. If you could just cross that out, that will be removed from this amendment before you. Otherwise, it's up to you what you want to do with this based on that information.
Well, do you want to make a motion to approve or a motion? Okay, Stephen Cox makes a motion to approve amendment number 2 to the Clark County Republican bylaws. Do we have a second? Second is this was provided prior to, like 6 months ago, prior to the last quarterly meeting, to be added to this agenda. Seconded by Carolyn Crane, and we are open for discussion. If anybody would like to say anything, please come to the front.
Smith, 592. I really think this whole vote is out of order because the whole point of bylaw amendments, we're required by our bylaws to send them out a couple weeks notice. And the reason for advance notice for a bylaw amendment is people decide whether to show up to vote for or against something. So now we're making changes on this on the fly. People weren't aware of what.
It was presented multiple times for the past 6 months, including prior to the last one. The only thing was that there was minor changes that were made by the recommendation of the committee, which don't require advance notice if there's minor changes like that. The actual amendment was provided a long time ago. So, yes.
Steve Cox, 692. Point of order is the procedures on making this administrative amendment to the bylaws before it comes to a vote. Could we not do this as a motion here and now to make that change as well? Yeah, I understand Kenny's point. You have a valid point.
It was provided in a timely manner. So his point would be correct if it wasn't, but you guys, everybody's received this.
The original amendment to the bylaws, yes, we received that, but that change that was just made, when was that made? Was it sent out 14 days in advance?
No.
It was not. So Kenny makes a valid point. Ergo, I'm saying, can we make, as a point of order, can we make that amendment?
Okay, yes, sir. So we can amend the motion to accept the revised version of the bylaw amendment that you have in front of you today.
So somebody needs to make that motion.
Yeah. So you have the bylaw amendment that was sent to you.
Number
This is
6.
the revised one.
On the bylaws, there needs to be a motion to amend
to the
what he
revised.
said. Well, yeah, in procedural, however it sounds.
So I guess we can make a motion to replace what was provided 6 months ago with the revised and improved version. Well, there's a revised version in front of you, so we can just make the motion instead of going through every detail to approve the revised, or accept the revised version to vote on today. So, do we have a motion to accept the revised version? And do we have a second? And that's been seconded by Donnelly? Okay.
Laura Collis, 985. I am on the bylaws committee, and one of the things that we've done with our committee is very thoroughly vet resolutions that are coming before us. I will say that I was cornered as I was coming in by Trevor today to tell me that this got revised, so it's different than what the committee actually had approved or recommended in terms of passing. So, in my opinion, I would rather not vote for it, in favor of it, because the committee hasn't fully had an opportunity to again vet these changes that were made as of last night. So that's my rationale for not voting.
Yeah, so the changes were ones that were, I think, recommended by Trevor, and that we were supposed to have both versions here, but we only had the time to get one version, and those were pretty important improvements to the amendment. Trevor felt like, and I agreed with him. So while it wasn't, the current one has minor changes to it, they were pretty important changes to make this something that's more reflective of our party. And they weren't major changes, but that's why we have the version that we do today.
Michael Ware, 449. So Kenny's point is the bylaws say that it has to be finalized 14 or 20 days prior, and we're talking about an amendment that is not, a motion that has not been approved by the committee on Monday. It's not within the time period allowed, and and we're going to change it now. If you change it now, it can't be voted on for another additional 14 or 20 days. So if this is so important, let's just wait to the proper period and vote on it when the bylaws are obeyed. We can't waive the bylaws now.
Yeah, as the committee chair, and also what David said, so our committee got to reviewing this on Monday, and we didn't have a lot of time because we had other items before us, so we did the best we could with the time we had. And then, of course, there were changes made after personally that I reviewed. So I agree with what Kenny's saying, I agree with the sentiment. I leave it to this body to consider. You have the revised version before you. I think we should check to see whether or not there is a requirement in terms of whether or not we can even vote on this. I can't.
Well, we can revise it on the floor, so the provisions are completely acceptable as long as you guys
I think
want to
that's true.
replace what you were provided with the revised version. That's correct.
But it's up to the body whether or not that's wise to do so.
It is, and that's what So we have the vote on whether or not to replace it with this revised version in front of you today. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, the content of it is basically the same. Minor changes are very minor changes. So it's up to the body if you guys want to accept the revised version. All in favor of accepting the revised version, please raise your hand. All opposed to accepting to vote on the revised version? So you guys want to vote on the original version? Motion carries. So the original version that you guys were provided, which doesn't include the upgrades that were done today, but you were all provided in a timely manner. Do you guys want to take a vote on whether or not to approve it? One of the major reasons why we are doing this today is because we need to improve what was done with the vetting committee process. There's members here that agree that process is broken and needs improvement, and we could wait to vote on this until next meeting, but then you will be severely damaging our ability to send out the vetting documents and approvals and all that kind of stuff, and then report that to you at that meeting versus having it in place today so that we have an efficient way of people actually doing the vetting process and getting you the information before the election next time. So that's the purpose, and that's the only reason that we wanted it on this agenda versus waiting, so you know who you're endorsing next time. So it's up to you guys whether or not you want to do that, but the amendment to the bylaws that you provided 6 months ago, so now we have a motion on the floor to vote on, or to accept the original amendment without the upgrades, I guess. Does anyone want to second that? And then you can talk about replacing it again if you want to. Is there a second? Alan Rogers? So now we're in discussion there. If somebody would like to replace it with the revised version, you can still do that if you like the improvements that are made to it. If not,
we took a look at the original version, and frankly, Josh and I are in agreement on this thing about wanting to be grassroots and trying to also adhere to the letters of law and everything else and behave ourselves and act like Republicans that are responsible people that obey law. We're also trying to be inclusive. And so some of these changes that we put into this as it came forward, I didn't like the fact that the original version struck the right of one person to come forward. One voice was being blocked and you had to run around and get 10 signatures to back you. Well, that's all very nice. I don't want one voice shut down. I may disagree with your voice all day long, but I don't want it shut down. I'm a Republican. We don't do that. So I would like to now make a motion to accept the amended version that we came forward with as a bylaws committee. The only change in this piece of paper actually further strengthens your individual right. And as a PCO, it's my goal to make sure you all have that right.
okay. So that's motion to accept the changes in the revised version. The crossout was a printing error, so that would still, everybody should have already crossed that out. So the printed one in front of you with that one crossed out, which should not have been there. Yeah. Well, so we can make that motion, I guess, if this one carries. Is that good? We can discuss that if that carries. We'll decide whether or not to strike that. Okay. Well, the printed version in front of you is the amended one that's being asked to be adopted. We can address that line if it passes, if it doesn't pass. So any discussion about doing the revisions?
Steve Cox, 692. I'd like to withdraw my motion to pass the original amendment here, and the reason is that we need to table it, have it go back. It will not affect the vetting committee at all because those rules are already in the bylaws.
Well, the concern was that the process flopped last year. So if those are the same ones we're following this year, what's going to be the change?
The process flopped because the committee failed to do its job, not for any other reason.
Okay. John?
Josh Jones, Precinct 340. Is there any problem, negative effect that would be had by us tabling this until the next meeting? Would be my point.
The only concern of why people wanted it brought up today was for the vetting process to be improved and we have a team ready to do it, but they can't do it if they're not granted that ability to within our bylaws.
My overall thoughts are there's still questions of the timeliness of how things are being handed out and changes are handed out, and the fact that the version in front of us now is not the version that even we approved Monday night. There's been changes since then from the bylaws committee. I would be of the opinion it would be best to table this until our next meeting as well to get better timeliness out to everyone and let the bylaws committee review it further. Thank you.
Well, we're currently on a motion that whether or not to accept the changes. So, yeah, so do you want to table the motion to accept the changes or the?
I move to commit this entire layering of this particular bylaw change back to the bylaws committee.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Josh Jones, second by Michael Ware. So everybody that wants to table this back to the committee and bring it back to you guys at the next meeting, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, it's going to go ahead and go back to the committee that's been approved, and we'll visit it next time.
I think that was the right choice. We're working on, as a committee, how to work these things out, so I appreciate your patience. So that will be on our agenda for our next meeting, and you are all welcome to join, by the way. The next item up for review is the resolution that this body committed to us, which was Resolution for Financial Transparency and Accountability, calendar year 2017. This was brought before this committee at the last meeting and then sent to us for review. Now we have a report back on that. The author, Richard Colwell, Precinct Committee Officer, 632. And the summary of this resolution was to provide all PCOs with the 2017 party bank accounts, meeting minutes, and resolutions so that PCOs can verify the financial activities of this party. So that was the kind of the summary of that resolution. We took a look at that. We discussed it in great detail. I think we had really good discussions on that. And what we agreed to report back for all of you is that we collectively agree that there is inadequate transparency within our current party's financial activities. We also believe that a structural fix is needed to address this. So therefore, in addition to that, we would like you all to be aware that there's currently a third-party financial review, which the treasurer shared about earlier today. So that's, I think you should take it, or we think you should take into consideration for the vote on this resolution. And we wanted to let you know that our committee is currently working on a bylaw amendment proposal that we plan on presenting at the next quarterly meeting to address the concerns expressed in this resolution. And we have on the next page, this is the resolution, which I didn't see either in the handouts, by the way, but you did receive it at the last meeting, but yeah, it should be in your handouts. Because you will be taking a vote on it, or what to do about it. In any event, if you could scroll down again, Mark. Oh, it should have, does it include our amendment proposal? Strange. All right, let me read it to you then. Yeah, we submitted our committee report. It should be there, so I'm not sure what happened, but let me pull it up here really quick. I can also forward it, if I forward it into your email, would you be able to pull it up? We do that, okay, because I think it's good everyone looks at it.
Could I get it at the end of later on?
Stand by for just a minute. We wanted to read to you guys the proposal we're working on, just so you're aware, for the bylaw amendment on this topic. It's not ready yet, of course, but we have a draft. I just wanted to share with you. All right, I forwarded the email there, Mark. As he's pulling it up, let me read it. All right. I don't think you can read that, but I'll read it. So basically, in the treasurer's duties, which is Article 9, Section 4 of our current bylaws, there are outlined certain things that need to be done. We are considering adding to one of the duties that the treasurer present a record of all receipts and disbursements at each central committee meeting for review. We're also considering adding that when the line that says that the books need to be reviewed annually by an audit committee, that we're going to further define what that mechanism looks like. It's very vague right now, so we think by doing that it should help address this concern. Additionally, we are going to change, or we're proposing changing the annual treasurer's report to a quarterly report, which is also something the treasurer already mentioned, but we'll put that into the bylaws. And also, instead of submitting monthly financial statements, or in addition to submitting monthly financial statements to the board, which is a current requirement, we'll introduce those financial statements at central committee meetings an hour and a half before, so people can come, PCOs can come in and look at that as well to help provide more transparency. We were considering adding also an additional clause that says that the treasurer shall cause all financial records and books of the central committee to be made available upon appointment for the meeting. So those are the topics that we're discussing. We still have to work them out. But the resolution that Richard put before you, it's up to you what you'd like to do with that. So any questions? That's true. It's also the e-board meeting. Yeah, we were talking about basically giving the opportunity to anybody, any precinct committee officer prior to executive board meetings, prior to committee meetings like these, an hour and a half prior to review all financial documents. So, by appointment. Correct. All of what I'm saying to you right now is going to be discussed in our following resolution committee meetings, and we'll come back to you with a formal amendment. And if any of you want to come participate in that, please do. But that's our report back to you, and that's all we have.
Okay, let's do a quorum count. Members only, please stand up. And Jimmy and Anita, please do a quorum count. PCOs only. If anybody's not a PCO, please move to the back of the room. Yeah, we have more. Okay, so
there was a motion,
yeah, Richard made a motion to approve his vote on his resolution. Well, Well, okay, we're done the reports right now, so we'll finish that in the unfinished business as we get through this, and we'll follow the agenda.
Yeah, the resolution.
Well, this was unfinished business, I don't know.
No, the resolution should be before the vote, that's my understanding, just like the amendments. It's up to the body what you want to do with the information you gave you on Richard's resolution, but it was, in my opinion, on the agenda, but that's your fault.
That's, I mean, typically unfinished business comes, but we can do that now if people would like to. Richard can speak, if he has a second, by Robert.
Caldwell, 632.
Okay, go ahead and speak.
So the reason I think we need to have this is I've been hearing a lot about the financial misfeasance and malfeasance going on. So I've been going into a lot of the documents that I can get a hold of, the ones that I can get a hold of, and I've requested other ones with the treasurer, and I've been denied. But I have here, like I said, a check that does not appear anywhere in the PDC reports for $10,000 made out to Robert Sable. His name doesn't show up in anywhere as having received a check for $10,000 in the PDC reports. And the accounting that I have, an internal account I got from the prior treasurer, also doesn't show this. So she was never notified that this check had gone out. She had to go to the bank to get a copy of this cashier's check, which by itself is a violation because that was in, you have to have 2 signature requirement in all expenditures. And this is a $10,000 expenditure, not $200, but $10,000 to somebody. It doesn't show up anywhere. There's something wrong going on in this party financially, and we are being denied our access to see those things. And I'll show you that copy of that check right here, but I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to get that information directly from the board in the form of the bank statements, in the form of all the cashier's check copies that they pulled from the bank, and all the resolutions which would or not support this expenditure. Because there's no board meeting minutes approving this expenditure either. So something is seriously wrong in this party, and we're being denied access to see these things. Thank you.
So I'll just give you guys some clarification. We had to take we had to borrow $10,000 to pay the Hilton for our Lincoln Day. Yeah, and I'm going to speak to this as the chair, as to this information that was just brought forward. We didn't have enough funds in the bank to cover the Lincoln Day dinner. We were granted a loan for $10,000 right before the event to pay, so we didn't have to cancel the event. Sergeant Arms will keep order, Richard. And so immediately after the event, we had to reimburse obviously that loan, and that information was directly provided entirely and to the treasurer at the time, who did have an issue with being accurate in her statements. But at that time, if anybody has any questions about this $10,000 check, it was all reported. It was a loan that we had right before the dinner and paid back right after the dinner so that we could move forward. And the Hilton said if we didn't do it, they were going to keep us locked out of the building. So we were grateful to Robert Sable for giving us that short-term, funds that we returned to him immediately afterwards.
Is there a commissary note that's happening today? Because it doesn't show up in the PDC report that it's half a loan.
I was not the treasurer at that time, and there's a reason why that treasurer is not here anymore. So we did. It's not a side. I just wanted you guys to all have the facts. So there is the motion to accept Richard Caldwell's resolution that you guys had previously received. If anybody has anything to speak to, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to speak to it. For several years, we've had a problem with transparency. Many members of this body have asked for reports for several years. And when you look at $1.9 million in fees and fines, I think anybody in their right mind could recognize there's an issue and it needs to be solved. So I don't disagree with the need for transparency, and I appreciate the fact that Richard Caldwell has come forward and agreed with me after disagreeing with me just the year before last. My point being that I think what the bylaws committee wants to do is actually better than what we're being offered through this resolution. We want to make it a permanent bylaw, and we plan to come forward with volunteers from this body to create an audit committee that looks at those books and gives us reports. I think that passing the resolution as it stands is an obstruction to what should be done in the best interest of this body, so that we can be cooperative and transparent and make it permanent. and move forward with volunteers right here in this body. And I would encourage you to do a do not pass on this one and consider coming over to the bylaws committee and helping us finish structuring the amendment for a new bylaw.
Brian Galapnik, Precinct 430. I can't speak for the committee, the bylaws committee, but my impression as we discussed this resolution was that it had so many problems. We didn't want to address it line by line, but we wanted to take a better course in response to the issue raised, in response to the resolution. So we didn't want to say do not pass, we definitely didn't want to say pass, but we wanted to address it in a constructive way with a permanent fix. That's it. Thank you.
So at the last Central Committee meeting, I made a motion to allow Richard to see the bank statements. He was asking for some bank statements, and you guys voted not to allow that. And you told him, Dan Barnes and some others said, all the information in the PDC report. It sounds like maybe all the information is not in the PDC report. So this time I'm going to vote for his resolution, and they can do a lot of fixing later if they want. That'd be great. But it sounds like they could drag this on, and I think he's over this stuff because he's being sued by the chairman. So.
Objection.
Pardon me.
Objection. You're not pressing the resolution.
Anyway, so anyway, I'm going to vote for this, and I encourage you to do it.
So it comes back to, does any individual PCO have the authority or right to demand to see the books and all the transactions? I don't think that it is the right of any PCO to see it and to have access to it. I think that, and I'll clarify here, is that I think my obligation is to the body here, not to one individual PCO. It's an additional, right, you're right, there is, I'm talking to, just wait for me to finish talking, please. So, if somebody, let's say infiltrates the party and gets in here and decides they're going to become a PCO, do I have the obligation to open everything up and show them bank account information and everything? I mean, I don't think that's right. I don't think that we should have to do that. And if so, if we do decide to let one PCO view the books like their own independent audit committee as a single person, then I think it should be voted on by all the PCOs if they have access to it. Every single time, I think that should be the case. I think transparency within the party is important, and I think we have measures in place that accomplish that. Don't elect a treasurer you think is going to be dishonest. You're never going to have enough measures in place, you can't do enough to stop a dishonest person from doing dishonest things. I think we have enough in place right now. We already have something about an internal or audit committee. Well, let's get that committee established, and if that PCO wants to be on the committee, maybe he can be on the committee. But I don't want to spend the extra time. I already spend a lot of time running 2 signed checks back and forth and going and getting donor information and stuff off somebody who didn't have information. Like it's a substantial time investment to be a treasurer, and I've learned that since I've become the treasurer. I don't want to have to spend additional time answering every nitpicky thing about every single little transaction from somebody that may or may not have the party's best interests at heart.
Shouldn't have taken the job then, huh?
Josh Jones, 340. I just want to respond to something real quick that our treasurer said. If we look at the motion on the floor, it's to release these documents to all PCOs, not specifically just one PCO. So if the body of the Central Committee votes to have this released to all of us as a Central Committee, this is not one PCO asking for something, this is the body asking for something for the body. I look forward to the work we can do in the future for the bylaws to make a permanent bylaw change. I don't see what would be the harm in doing this as a one-time thing to hold us over until such a time as we complete that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and take a vote. The motion is to accept the resolution that was presented to you by Richard Caldwell. The motion was made by Kenny. It was tabled until this time, and this time the motion was made by Richard Caldwell, seconded by Robert Moon. All in favor of to accept the resolution provided to you by the last meeting that was tabled or referred to you by the. It would be the original that was tabled until this meeting. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed, please raise your hand. Yeah. If it's an obvious, I don't need to have counters if it's obvious. It's the resolution that was releasing all of the documents to everybody. And the motion fails. Okay, if the treasurer is challenging the ruling of the chair. Sorry, the secretary is challenging the ruling of the chair. So we will have two people count. Anita, all in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. Leslie, Anita, Leslie, can you help count? Jamie, if you're able. All opposed, please raise your hand. The ruling of the chair is confirmed. Motion failed. Okay, we're going to move on to the Candidate Support Committee. Gary Schaefer.
First thing I want to say is we have a declaration of candidacy now. And if you even think about you might want to run for office, please fill this out and give them to Ann Donnelly before we leave the meeting. So I got to say something. I was kind of surprised when I walked in this morning. The chairman says, "Gary, how come you're all dressed up?" And I figured I was walking across my bedroom and I trimmed and I felt these clothes. And I didn't get them off in time.
Very responsible for what happens.
How's that for an explanation?
Plenty of stuff. We're all part of this. We're all now cohorts.
I'm sorry, what?
Accessories or accessories after the fact if we don't do anything to prevent it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, everybody be quiet. I have the floor.
John Bryden. John Bryden. Okay, I'm Dan Clark.
The second one that we produced is a candidate. We changed the previously approved questionnaire to mainly to comply with bylaws and to comply with the committee charter. one of the things that we did, and you all started off a little bit when you came in here, so.
Did I tell you about the,
and I think it was filled out
the 1 liter
also.
soda pop
So,
an insulator?
I don't know if you want to
They
go
had the
through
wires
this
wrapped down, they
thing
put
piece
soda.
by piece or not. I can just tell you, the things that mainly changed.
1,500 or
The
35,000?
requirement that if a
Did I ever show you
candidate
the picture of the
has
shower
a
heads?
felony on their record, that
Oh
they
man, you have the wires sticking out every morning you go in there.
to
You know,
us
maybe I'll just take them.
during the interview. The whole thing looks
Yeah,
like
they're,
this
they're on a
according to charter.
completely different program down there.
We will
I go down there to do some plumbing.
send a letter to all the people who have
They thought it was
filed for
wizardry of some
office
sort.
and congratulate them on their filing
They
for
don't hold the
Republicans, of course, not the Democrats. Anyway, and ask them if they would like to be endorsed, and if so, would they please give us a letter telling, you know, that they want to be endorsed. What we will do with that letter is we will send them out a package that includes our questionnaire, includes a copy of the charter, so that they know what they're doing. And we'll invite them in for an interview. When we interview them, we'll interview them according to the questionnaire that you all have. And we'll take that and we will give that package, the interview, the questionnaire, and all the materials we have, and we'll give it to the chairman. The chairman will then take it to the executive committee and then take it to all of you to decide whether you want to endorse this candidate or not. So that's, in a nutshell, that's basically what we're doing, is to streamline the process, but we also added another requirement. We've had a challenge in the past with new candidates. People want to run for office, and they've never run for office before, and they have a lot of challenge because they don't know quite what to do. So we wanted to encourage them. It's not mandatory, but it's encouragement, and it'll go into the report whether they have it or not. It's 3 separate documents. One would be, well, actually 4. One will be a primary and a general election timeline. That they list all the events, all the fundraisers, all the times when they're going to send out mailers, all the times when they're going to ask for doorbelling or phone banking or all these things. And the reason for that is three things. Number one, it allows us in the committee to schedule, try to solicit manpower, and we will know in advance when we're going to need to help the candidate. Because we have a timeline, both for the primary and for the general. The second thing that does is if they're going to go to donors, they can show them what the campaign is going to consist of. And they're much more likely to get a good donation than they go in there just with their hands in their pockets. The third thing is that it is necessary. I've never seen a great election won without an organization of what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, so all their staff and all the people who are supposed to be supporting them is what the heck is going on. We can't afford to lose elections. We lose elections, number one. The candidate's disappointed. Number two, the people who worked on that candidate, that campaign are disappointed. And 3, it reflects poorly on the party, and we should have been able to. Especially there's a lot of elections, or not a lot of elections that we've seen in the past. Could have been a walk away. But the new candidate didn't quite know what to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to help them, if they need help, write these documents, we show them how to do it. Remember, the second thing is that a fundraising plan. You have a fundraising plan. How are you going to raise your funds? Well, when you write it all out,
I am too.
So if they say, I don't know how to write a fundraising plan, we'll show them how to write a fundraising plan. We're not going to leave them hanging out there if they ask, if they want to help. The third thing is really necessary, and that's the strategy and tactics document on how to win this election. And once again, Okay, if they don't know how to do that, we'll show them how to do that. So that we have a well-disciplined set of campaigns coming up. We give the new candidates and any other candidates the knowledge they need to run a great campaign that we in the party can be proud of and that they can be proud of. That's all in our charter. And I think, David, you're going to ask them if they want to vote on accepting the charter. Is that what it is?
No, not the charter, the candidate questionnaire
Oh, the
has to be
candidate
approved by
questionnaire.
the body, and it's basically the same as the one that we had last year.
It is the same as what we had last year.
Everybody has it printed out, it requires the approval of the body. This can be done through the vetting committee if they're going to do something this year, but maybe they can't send the candidate support committee until changes are made.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to make a motion to approve the candidate questionnaire for this year, moved and seconded. Who moved? Sorry. Who was? Helen.
No.
Close.
Okay.
This business is fairly simple. We can do a form count if you want to, but the questionnaire is kind of the same. We have it moved and seconded to accept the questionnaire for the 2018. Does anybody have any discussion about it? Everybody in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion carries. The questionnaire will be presented to candidates, which is in front of you. Back to you, Gary.
Thank you. Otherwise, we would have had to use the old questionnaire, and we wouldn't have the benefits of the experience and knowledge that we've had using the old to draft something that's more pertinent. The last thing I wanted to share with you is that I told you the process, told you about the charter. We in this committee could also use some help. To help support the candidates. These are vital. Trump showed us the way, the effectivity of using social media to overpower the press, because we all know that we have a bit of a challenge sometimes with it. So we're looking for somebody to join our committee who can help us with social media and help the candidates with social media to give us that leverage against the negative press that we have. We're also looking for somebody who's helping us with being a secretary. Ann Gormley has been doing a fabulous double job of being the co-chair and the secretary, so we need some help with that. We also need somebody to help us schedule these interviews. And so anybody who would like to come and we meet the second and the fourth Wednesday of every month. We have 2 meetings a month. And we're going to continue to have 2 meetings a month until we get all these documents. We're a race against, a bit of a race against time because I think filing is in mid-May, mid-May sometime. So we want to make sure that we're ready to go when the candidates are ready.
What are the expenses?
We want to have a great discipline.
Because they still owe me $250 for the AV stuff I brought when governor was in for the Greg, wasn't it? Had a grant for, Bill Bryant.
Bill Bryant,
and we went through a treasure search.
If I had my perfect way, I
would
make sure that we didn't have one single Democrat elected or re-elected in this election cycle. That's what I want to do. Anyway, that's
well, I paid for it out of my credit card to rent the equipment. Like, what the hell? No good deed goes unpunished.
Here.
So I want to say something real quick. Jeff, that's why we have these committees that are going to start doing this kind of work for our candidates. So feel free to show up and be a part of it. They're doing some great work, and a lot of people here go to those meetings. A lot of people aren't going to those meetings. So the ones that are going are showing that they agree with you and they want to show up and get out the vote.
How many of you showed up solely for the purpose of having each copy in the cupcakes? Oh. fact is that we have less freedoms today than our fathers and grandfathers had. Every day, the legislature and the Congress is chipping away at our personal freedoms. Pretty soon, our children will not nearly have the freedoms we have. So, if our families and our futures are at stake by whom we get elected here, why aren't all of you coming to help us beat the people who want to buy an oppressive, authoritarian government over us and return so that our children have the same or better advantages than we had?
Thank you, Gary. We do have to move forward. So, Larry, great report. Really appreciate it, Gary.
Lie about why I could dress
All right. Larry. Working.
Larry DeBree is Precinct 641 and Chair of the Education and Training Committee. I have a few short slides that I'm going to give that were part of this new PCO training class that we held last Saturday. Here's the new PCO manual. The PCO training class is 2 hours in length. This part of the PCO class was called Precinct Leader Training. And next slide. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we're talking about in that training. This slide shows the voter turnout in Clark County in the last 5 elections. And you can see on the left, if you can see the screen here, the turnout in Clark County was 77% in 2016, and going back to 2012, it was 79%. But in the middle there, you see a midterm turnout of about 51%, and that's what we're talking about in the class. 2018 is another midterm. Voter turnout is important, but it doesn't really tell the story because you don't really know what party turned out and what party didn't turn out. Let's look at the next slide. This is a slide that shows a party predictor race, and research has shown that the Secretary of State race in a state is a predictor of how your state and how your regions within the state break down by party. This is Clark County by percent of the vote for each of the 2 parties. And it shows that the Republicans have an advantage in the last elections for Secretary of State going back to 2012, 2008, and 2004. If you throw out the first bar charts to the left here and average the others, you see that the voters have, in Clark County, they're showing an advantage of 55 to 45% over the other party. Now that's the good news. The 2008, and these races, of course, are on the presidential year only. So that's the good news in the presidential year. But 2018 is a midterm, and we get much lower turnout in the midterm. There's a drop of about 25 percentage points, we figure, in the Republican turnout in the midterm year. And why is that? We know that there's some leaning Republicans that don't vote. There's probably a good number of independents that eventually